everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you of a new Tier 9 Czechoslovakian premium heavy tank. It is the Medvěd, and this vehicle has a very threatening autoloader with 440 alpha damage shells that, albeit it does take a long time to unload with its intra-clip reload. So is this vehicle going to be the bear of the battlefield? Well, that is what my job is to tell you today. But before we maul our opponents on the battlefield, let's see how the Medvěd stacks up to its regular tech tree counterpart, the T9 VZ51, the now available Object 265T, which is a Soviet autoloading heavy, and also the Object 752, which is a premium and probably the best Tier 9 premium to be able to get your hands on as like a standard. So immediately we notice that this 122mm, which all of these tanks shares on the Medvěd, hits just as hard as the T9 VZ51 and harder than the Soviet vehicles. It also has very good damage per minute like the Object 265T, which beats the Object 752. Furthermore, with regards to its magazine damage, it deals 1,760, although it takes 11.25 seconds to be able to deliver its 4 shells, as it has a 3.75 intra-clip reload, which is longer than all of the other vehicles in this comparison. But that's only half a second more than an Object 752, but significantly longer than the T9 VZ51 and the Object 265T. So while it does take a long time for this thing to dump out its mag, it's not so incredibly long that it becomes unusable. By far one of the most brutal things about the Medvěd is that it has really good gold. 325mm of APCR penetration, smashes the tech tree tank, obliterates it really with 31mm more pen, and it does also dominate the Object 752's gold rounds as well. So if you are a bit of a pay-to-win player with your premium tanks and you always find yourself loading gold, then this might be the vehicle for you. So now onto the gun handling. 3 seconds aim time. It's not great, but at least it's better than the Object 752. Accuracy, though, at 0.45, that's one of the worst of any of the Tier 9 heavies, and it makes even the really bad accuracy of the Object 752 look desirable, to say the least. Gun handling wise, worst in this comparison, the same as the Object 265T, and it makes the T9 VZ51 look like it has an absolute sniper of a gun in comparison. The vehicle, however, has 8 degrees of gun to pressure, which makes it very flexible on a ridgeline, one of the strengths of the Object 752. So all in all, for the gun handling, it's not great news at all for this vehicle. It's pretty much the worst here, but to be flexible and to have at least not the worst aim time is a little bit of an advantage for the Medvěd. So now onto the mobility. 36 forwards, slow like the Object 752, but backwards at 16 is really nice. So you're going to be able to pull back around the corner. Also, another clear advantage for this vehicle is its power to weight ratio of 17.5, which is much better than all of the other vehicles in this comparison, but its ground resistances are poor, only slightly better than the Object 265T. And all in all, this does allow the vehicle to get around up to its top speed limit, and I would say it's just a touch faster than the Object 752 within that regard. So now onto the armor, because it's been fairly good news for the firepower, the gun handling, and okay news for the mobility. Well, we can see the hull is disappointing. 105 at the front, 70 at the side, and 40 at the rear is not good news for the Medvěd. It also has 270 at the front of the turret and 80 on the side of the turret, so it looks like it's way worse than all of the other vehicles in this comparison. And when we go and take a look at its armor model, yeah, we see it struggles. The hull armor on this tank is pennable by Tier 7, let alone Tier 10 tanks. It has a big driver's hatch on the front as well, which even when you're using your 8 degrees of gun depression is always a vulnerability. Your opponents can also shoot up into the side armor here and even be able to overmatch this part with 76mm caliber guns, which is really irritating on the vehicle. It also has this gun port on the front of the turret, which is weak, so take advantage of that if you're fighting these vehicles on the battlefield. And it has a weak point on top that's always visible, unlike the Object 752, where you can actually raise the gun and then lower the top of the turret back in above the kind of like the mantlet gun shield that the vehicle has. So all in all, this vehicle's armor, it's not useless, but it's not good. It's not good news at all. And to be fair to Wargaming, thumbs up to you for putting actual weak points that players with knowledge will be able to engage on this tank. But yeah, it doesn't feel very good for the Medvěd player if they want to be at least just sitting in front of people and making them cry like an Object 752. Hit points wise, 1,750 is the lowest in this comparison, the same as the Object 752. And a passing mention should be made to the view range on this tank, which is actually nice. 390 means that you won't really need coated optics to be able to see very far in this tank at all. Crew wise, if you have a T9 VZ55, you're going to be happy. They work perfectly in this tank. For your commander, I'd recommend Brothers Repairs, Recon, Emergency, Coordination, and Practicality. For their radio operator skills, situational awareness, side-by-side, and firefighting will do you proud. For your gunner skills, Brothers Repairs, Snapshot, Deadeye, Designated, and Armorer will be great on this tank. Again, drop Designated Target if you don't want to spot your opponents for a little bit longer or see their internal modules, and probably take quick aiming on this vehicle will help that aim time a little bit and the turret traverse. For your driver skills, Brothers Repairs, Smooth Ride, Off-Road Driving, Controlled Impact if you want to do a little bit of ramming, but this isn't the heaviest of tanks, but 57 tons is still good, and you'll be able to get pretty much everything apart from the heavies, and Engineer will be nice. For your loader skills, Brothers, Repairs, definitely Intuition, definitely Ammo Tuning, and then your choice probably of maybe focusing on Adrenaline Rush to cut down that magazine reload, but I would personally rather take Safe Stowage and Perfect Charge on this tank to be able to get the rounds out a little bit quicker, at least towards the target, and also survive a little bit longer, right? So with equipment on this tank, I think it's nice and simple. I would recommend taking Vents, Vert Stabs, and Turbo, and then I would have a second build on this tank where you drop the Turbo and take a durability device instead. Or if you want to go for massive firepower, then you could be taking Vents and an aiming device on this tank. And if you're feeling fancy, drop out the Turbo and replace it with an experimental Turbo. But that's how I 3-marked both my Tier 9 and my Tier 10 Czech heavy tanks, and how I will hopefully get it on the Medvěd one day. Okay, field mods wise, I'd recommend that you take the ground resistances, follow it up with improving the accuracy on the tank, then take yourself the view range on this vehicle. I would recommend taking the firepower slot here to be able to boost up your Vert Stabs, especially if you're going to be taking a Bounty Turbo or an Experimental Turbo. And for the final field mod, this thing actually gets faster by 4 kilometers an hour, which is lovely, and you should totally take advantage of that. And a quick passing mention should be made that for all of you out there who are trying to compare this tank to the Object 752, the 752 doesn't actually get that field mod, which makes the Medvěd 4 kilometers an hour faster, while still actually being faster backwards, even when the Object 752 takes the reverse speed. But maybe I'm nitpicking. Let's see what the bear does on the battlefield. All right, so first up, we're rolling out in a full Tier 9 matchup, and full disclosure, will be using a level 3 experimental turbo on this vehicle with vents and regular Vert Stabs. So in this kind of a matchup, you could kind of go everywhere with this vehicle, right? I could make my way towards the center and then just try and snipe it out, but I think this vehicle, it really wants to just have one person, hopefully, in front of it, and then just to hold down the mouse button. It's a bit of a weird tank because it's not like your traditional autoloader where you just need kind of like 2 to 3 seconds to get out that double tap that you have on your Czech heavies. It really does need an extended fight, hopefully with a single tank in front of it. And if it can manage to get that single fight with that's extended in front of it, man, this thing is absolutely brutal. Nobody wants to take 1,760, let alone nobody wants to sit in front of an Object 752 and take 1,170 in the 6.4 seconds. Now, this vehicle, it's going to take, wow, it's quite a long time. It's 7.5 seconds to be able to get off 3 shots in this vehicle. But remember, with the extra 50 alpha damage that this vehicle gets, sometimes it can feel worth it, right? It's just definitely a scary tank within that regard. But that is an overpeak of overpeaks, and I'm very lucky that the Conqueror doesn't actually manage to get me. However, one up into the belly of the T95, and you can see that once you've got Vert Stabs inside a firepower slot, and you're using the experimental turbo, which is a great investment on any Tier 9 premium that you get, because Tier 9 premiums are fantastic, right? Fun matchmaking at their tier, combined with... Oh no! What did I say about the good matchmaking? Not good matchmaking, good gun handling there. Yeah, good matchmaking, makes bonds, makes credits on premium tanks at Tier 9. Lovely jubbly. But now we're going to see a 39-second reload, or at least a 39 base second reload before you get your vents, your brothers, and in this case, the premium consumable on it. So far, so telling for the Medvěd. We managed to get a couple of shots in. We bounced a shot, although we can probably count ourselves lucky that we actually bounced that WT Alpha Panzer IV there with its 270 millimeters of pen. A kind of Jagdtiger gun should have been able to go into us, really, if the guy had aimed a little bit carefully. And just again, if you skipped all of the stats review, firstly, you know what? No, I'll help you out anyway. Remember, this vehicle has a weak point here, this vehicle has a weak point on the driver's hatch, and it has a big old weak point on top of the vehicle. So one of the most important things to do in this vehicle is to not get bogged down just banging your head against tank destroyers, because the gun really doesn't have finesse. It doesn't have the armor. This isn't like a TNH VZ 55 or 51, where you can be able to pull off ricochets quite easily off the upper hull, and it's only really your lower plate that you have to worry about. What you want to look for is opportunities like this. This is the dream for the Medvěd. A Kampfpanzer 50T, two powerful ranked reward tanks. And just look at what we're going to do to this vehicle. Oh man, that was disgusting. And we've got another one for his friend as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the power of the bear. That is what this vehicle is capable of. That was pretty much the entirety of a very powerful tier 9 medium tank, completely eviscerated in the 11 seconds that it took that platoon to be able to react to the scenario. Those are the opportunities that you have to find in the Medvěd, and if you want to do well in this tank, you have to be smelling them. You have to sniff them out. You have to sense them on the battlefield, and you have to be there before you need to be there. I could see that the Kampfpanzers were probably going to push through, and it did take me a little while to lumber into position. Once you got that top field mod, however, as you can see with the speedometer, 47 kilometers an hour, albeit slightly downslope there. It's not bad. The mobility of this vehicle isn't bad. And I would thoroughly recommend trying to find opportunities to flank your opponents, to try and pressure medium tanks, where this gun feels absolutely ferocious. And with a slightly long intraclip reload is a little bit frustrating. You can see that we missed one of our shots, but still not too bad. And a little bit of a chancy one at the end there, but we had to reload anyway, right? We weren't going to just sit with a single shot. No point in waiting for the AE phase 1 there. So, this thing, man, it gets around, it clunks. Try and find those medium tanks. Try and punish those medium tanks. That is what your goal is with the Medvěd. And if you're able to do that, you will be very successful in this tank. What this vehicle is this kind of like weird, heavy, medium, pseudo hybrid of a vehicle. It's not a tank that wants to get bogged down. It's not a tank that really wants to just chill. It's a tank that definitely wants to keep the momentum going. But then it needs the engagement to be at its own speed, right? This isn't a vehicle which is able to handle really big, fast engagements. It's a tank that, again, wants to find one, at most two opponents and punish them in its time of 10 seconds, 11 seconds to be able to get that mag out. But if you're able to do that, boom, 6,100 combined and an absolute dominant win, as you would expect for a vehicle that just completely obliterated their medium tank advance. So round 2 for the Medvěd, and as I recommended, I'm going to be dropping out the turbo on this map to use a durability device instead, and that's going to make our gun handling a little bit worse, as we were using an experimental turbo, but to have those extra hit points and just to be able to not get caught in a city environment can be very helpful. But wow, yeah, right through the weak point there. You see that just towards the right-hand side of the gun as you're facing. Good knowledge by the T10. And this is going to happen a lot to you in the Medvěd. It really is. If you think this is kind of a traditional heavy where you can just sit in front of people and just laugh, it's not going to work out. And also the gun, man. Look at that. As soon as we drop that experimental turbo, we no longer have that 6% gun handling. Starting to feel a little bit ugly with the way that this reticle blooms out. So I guess one of the reasons as well is actually I've switched the vents inside the firepower slot rather than having the vert stabs inside the firepower slot. So this isn't just a 6% gun handling loss. This is actually an 8.5% gun handling loss here, purely because of that slot bonus with the vents. So that's pretty ugly as well. Definitely ugly. But you can see, at least when we sit still and we don't move, yeah, the gun can work. These short to mid ranges. Definitely wouldn't recommend sniping in this tank. And now we've got this awkward situation of, great, we fired one shot. Now we've got a 30-second reload. So in the previous battle, you might not have noticed how long those reloads were. But I can tell you, man, they are long. They are awkward. And they're awkward when you're just sitting in front of people, let alone awkward when your opponents are trying to push you, your opponents are trying to flank you, or you've got that tier 10 tank that's all into you, and there's not very much opportunity for you to be able to escape away from many heavies, let alone the faster vehicles as well. So a little bit of an over angle here by the Conqueror. I'm thinking about shooting up into his mantlet there. Unfortunately, I don't manage to hit the green with the poor accuracy, so why don't we just go for the side, finish him off. Should we go for a reload? Again, a reload. But this reload, it's definitely long. And unless you can truly catch somebody on a ridgeline, which is where I thoroughly recommend you try taking this vehicle. Try and take it to fight the mediums. Try to take it to push the aggressive flank. Try not to get bogged down in a town environment like I am here. But on Ghost Town, there's not really too much opportunity for pushing medium tank flanks aggressively with this vehicle. What am I going to do? Go up towards the west and then deal with all the tank destroyers shooting me and then the artillery bombarding me? Haha, good luck. No, I think while you can play the Medvěd for a variety of situations on maps, I think more or less it's, can you push a medium tank where heavy tanks would naturally go? Think about a map like Live Oaks, for example, or Serene Coast, Pearl River, those kind of maps. Those maps are great for the Medvěd because you're going to go to that traditional pushing flank and fight the mediums there and any of the faster heavies, and you will be brutal for that situation. But this is where this tank really starts to show its teeth, right? Like, I have that autoloader, and I can easily get one, if not two, extra shells in the T10's reload. Luckily, I don't need that extra shell. So, again, I'm just going to reload. So, what you're seeing here, hopefully, is that in the previous battle, you got to see those Dream 4 mags. But what you're seeing now is a little bit more how awkward the tank feels. And I think this is a very important thing to show inside this review. You know, I could just go and show you all of my biggest, best battles with my fantastic results, but not some of these kind of like awkward moments where you fire one, you fire two, and then you end up having to reload for so blooming long. It does feel awkward in that situation, and you'd do far better with a single shot tank, you'd do far better with an auto reloader, and you'd actually do better with the T9 VZ51, even with its lower damage per minute. Because at least you can get that double tap out way quicker. A second quicker than you can with this vehicle. Over a second quicker than you can with this vehicle. Or just a second. I think it's just a second. I think they nerfed the T9 VZ51 at tier 9. I think it used to be 2.5 and I think it's now like 2.75 or something. But with this vehicle, it's just, this gun, it hardly ever really gets that opportunity to truly deliver the 4 mag in its bursty form. And more often than not, you find yourself kind of firing off 2 or 1 at the XM, and then firing off a couple here at the Char and the WT Panzer IV. That's more or less what happens on this vehicle. I'm thinking, shall I ram him? No. Maybe I can now, though. Maybe the bear can get a no free ram kill. That's life. And so this battle, it was 6 minutes long, and I really feel like I truly tried to get my 4,000 damage out of this game. It's not a fantastic result for a powerful tank in a powerful matchup like this. So do keep that in mind. Do keep that in mind. That you need these kind of like mid-length battles that are hopefully fairly close, unless you truly get those kind of dream mags off that don't actually happen all that much. So, ladies and gents, boys and girls, if you think, oh, Medvěd, this thing looks like the powerhouse of powerhouses of World of Tanks, this is going to be the one. Look at QuickyBaby there, tried to get more damage in at the end of the game. Oh, well, and I missed the Patriot kill. That truly was an ultra greedy moment. But 5,300 combined. Again, it's not a bad result, but keep in mind that this battle was 6.5 minutes long. and quite a lot of battles. I'm not sure if you've been playing World of Tanks recently. Feel like they were over by 3 minutes, and then this thing's going to struggle to be able to get more than one magazine out, and then it can get very ugly. So, final round on Redshire against 2 artillery and some tier 10 tanks as well. Well, we got our work cut out for us in this battle. So, I want to come to a loose conclusion in the final battle as well for the Medvěd. Do I think that it's an incredibly strong tank and it's now the best tier 9 premium heavy in the game? No. The big difference between this and the Object 752 is the armor. This vehicle's armor just wilts under quite a few situations where the Object 752 just feels like this absolute powerhouse. This vehicle struggles to side scrape, it struggles to go hull down. We saw the T9 in the previous battle making fun of this thing's turret. But the armor, on the other hand, as well, as we can see here against the UDES, it can work. On top of that, the vehicle's gun feels okay. It's very nice for when you're firing at short and mid ranges, but can just feel so awkward in this kind of a situation. And looks like that guy hit just the front of my hull. Had a very well angled with his heat rounds. Again, showing that this vehicle is more about creating auto-ricochet angles rather than actually having truly thick armor. So, the 752. If you have a 752, you honestly might want to skip out on one of these, unless you're a big Czech-heavy fan. Although, I really think that Wargaming might have missed out on truly making a Czech-heavy at tier 9 here. There was absolutely no reason why they maybe couldn't have made a tank that had worse armor than the T9 VZ51, that maybe had a slightly better intraclip, like a 2.25 intraclip with 440 alpha. This honestly doesn't feel like a Czech heavy now. It kind of feels a bit like honestly, like an Italian tank destroyer with its long intraclip reload. And it's very interesting for me to see Wargaming extending these intraclip reloads on these vehicles. And while on something like a Char Future 4, which has a 4-second intraclip reload, very long, right? But only a quarter of a second worse than this. You have the mobility and the camo. Man, these artillery are grinding me right now. You have the ability, the mobility, I said, and the camo to be able to control the engagement to deliver those 4 rounds cleanly. In the Medvěd, you just got to get a bit thick. You just got to get a bit stupid, honestly. Ugh. Not a good shot. You've got to take some damage to make some damage in the Medvěd. And if you're unable to do that, then you're really, really, really going to struggle. So, unfortunately for me, I missed one of my shots, which now means that I can't finish off the 705. But by falling back, you probably thought that we were reloading. And sometimes you can do that. You can back off. Maybe your opponents are going to think, oh, the Medvěd is reloading now. But surprise them a little bit. Hold that 4th shot. Deliver that 4th shot. It's still worth it. With regards to your magazine reload, which is 39 seconds, think about each of your shells being worth a 10-second reload, and then, of course, the 3.75 intraclip that you have to have between it. But remember, your first shell doesn't have an intraclip, right? Because you get to fire it immediately after your vehicle's reloaded, which kind of means that the full reload of the 39 is also incorporated to that 3.75 intra. So, by holding a shell, you know, it can definitely be worth holding 10 seconds. I wouldn't really hold 20 unless it's life or death, as in finish that last tank off. But the longer you delay, the longer you're going to allow the rest of the battle to go awkward, right? So you can see we haven't really taken the artillery shells very well because of our fairly light armor. We haven't really avoided getting smashed by some of the UDES in front of us and that and the Batchat that hit us in the side. A nice shot on the move there. So this thing, if I was a 752 there, I really feel like I'd be waltzing in with way more hit points. But oh, Batchat, that's gotta hurt for you. You definitely didn't see that one coming. But nice ambush attempt there by the Batchat. But say hello to the garage for us, mate. And oh man, second AE phase 1 of the day. Excuse me, that just absolutely managed to get themselves caught out in that scenario. And now we're seeing the Medvěd with its forward 390 meters view range. Once you've got the field mod on this tank to be able to also increase that view range a little bit further, looking like it's pretty good. And now it's just about trying to hope, survive, hope the artillery, I'm safe from them here, hope that my opponents aren't going to be able to go after us, but still try and spot a little bit, try and keep some vision going, try and get as much spotting as we possibly can. And we're trying to make these 17 hit points work right now, all right? Well, let's see how long we're going to be able to keep them for in this situation. Again, all in all, the Medvěd. I think it's like a B or a C grade heavy for a tier 9 premium. Sure, it feels wonderful when you get just to progressively dump on a target that has a nice 12-second reload or something, and that's worse than your intro, and you can dump out all of your shells. But more often than not in this vehicle, I felt like the long intro clip made it so that when you're fighting a tier 10 heavy, for example, you know, like a T1 10E5 roughly has a 7-second reload. You're going to barely be able to get out 2 or 3 shells in the time that the T1 10E5 takes you to shoot you twice. And God forbid that you start to fight Soviet medium tanks with their like 4-second reloads now on the K91, right? Probably more like 5. If they don't have good equipment and they don't have good crew skills. But still, that's them shooting you twice before you've managed to hit them 3 times. And you're meant to be the autoloader, right? At what point is an autoloader not an autoloader? That's what you have to ask yourself. And this vehicle is definitely starting to stretch the terminology to where it doesn't truly feel like an autoloader. It's kind of got auto-reloader kind of intro clip, just without the benefit of being able to reload the shells one by one. Now, I could understand if Wargaming wanted to give this thing like a 5-second intro clip, but make it have like a 25-second reload, then it might as well have been like a Minotauro, right? Now, do I think it would have been better in that kind of a position? Better in some engagements, worse in others. But it does really feel that as Wargaming are populating so many tier 9 premiums into the game, that they're having to be very diverse with the way that they're trying to set their vehicles up. And don't get me wrong, I like diversity inside World of Tanks. I do enjoy when there's a different flavor of vehicles, and variety is the spice of life, right? But it also still feels as if Wargaming stretch away from what the line's origins are meant to be. What do people think when they think Czech heavies? They think 1-2, you know, that 1-2 punch with a low intro clip. Wargaming found that was too powerful with the VZ55 and nerfed it to 2.5, which is still good. Definitely not what it used to be. And they nerfed it with the TNH VZ51 as well. So maybe they were worried about trying to create that in a tier 9 premium. But to be fair, with the way that they've set this thing's armor up, I don't even really think that with the armor being set up in such a way that it would have been outrageous. So we hit the EBR once, but we ricochet. We missed the EBR there. Okay, calm down, QuickyBabs. Don't let this guy turn this into some kind of a freaky Kolobanovs. Okay, good. Job done. Medvěd conquers. That's it. That's the Medvěd. All in all, it's like a B or a C grade heavy. I wouldn't recommend spending big to be able to get your hands on this tank. However, if you've already managed to get one because you bought the loot boxes before this review was up, it's still a good tool for making credits, making some bonds at tier 9. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it. That was my full tank review on the Medvěd. Really hope you enjoyed this one. It was useful for you. If it was, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know what you think about the Medvěd in the comments down below. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Wednesday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with brand new drops tokens. So come and get them to be able to get closer to getting your T78 or alternatively your Panzer T25 completely for free just for watching the stream and collecting tokens for drops. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.